Okay, hi, Dr. Holbrook. This is Allana Thomas, and I am here to present my research literature review paper. And my paper was on the impact of slavery and colonialism on Black Jamaican women's beauty standards in relation to skin bleaching. And so, essentially, with this review, I think it goes without saying that colonialism and slavery have huge impacts on countries that often tend to last much longer than the actual enslavement, right? Or the actual colonialism that is happening, right? And so, for Jamaica in particular, there are economic challenges that still plague the country today because of the history of colonialism and the history of plantation slavery that happened in Jamaica. And so, in this review, I looked at the history of colonialism in Jamaica, as well as the lasting impacts on Black Jamaican women's sense of beauty. And so while doing this research, skin bleaching became one, if not uh, the only, almost, but just popular consequence and well-known consequence of slavery and colonialism in regard to beauty and especially for the country today. And so for Black Jamaican women, colonialism impacted not only their sense of self, but also their understanding of beauty and what that looks like. And so in this review, it was really just my intention to make sure that I looked at research that was reflective of what Black women were going through um, within that. And so overview, I'm going to touch on the three parts that I touched on within my paper. Of course, I'm going to try to condense all of the information that I found, just because, again, I don't want this to be over time. And I know that we've only been given a set amount of time to kind of go through it. But as far as the overview, I'm going to talk about the history of colonialism and slavery first. And then this phenomenon of skin bleaching is very nuanced and complex. It is not black and white. It is a lot of gray, actually, because a lot of the literature that I found was half of the people of the scholars really talked about how skin bleaching is connected to low self-esteem, to self-hate, and to identity, and the way in which plantation slavery really set the foundation of kind of the internalization of Western ideals of beauty standards, a sense of self, and all of those things. And then on the other hand, and on the other side of this kind of uh, phenomenon or issue, is that other scholars don't agree. Other scholars believe that skin bleaching is connected to music in the genre of dancehall and fashion and being fashion forward and the privileges that come with what that looks like, what it sounds like, and how it's presented as. And so those are the three things that I plan to talk about today. And so, starting with the history of colonialism and slavery in Jamaica, because of slavery and British colonialism, um, scholar Christopher Charles, who talks in very much in depth about and has several works that I even featured in this paper about how because of British's continuous importing of Africans and slavery within plantation slavery, skin color over time became a very large physical marker of power among other enslaved people, right? And so it's kind of this very similar instances that we've seen in American history, as well as lighter skin being associated with housework and better living accommodations, and that remain true even in Jamaica as well. And so, um, Doreen Gordon in 2010 also contributes to this understanding by establishing the depth in which social and class hierarchy has built up in Jamaica. And so some of the things that she talks about is how Jamaica has established this like white, brown, and black hierarchy based on a person's skin color. And so this is meant um, to explain that brown, which oftentimes is synonymous with lighter skin colors, um, is meant to have certain privileges, you know, under slavery, you know, that also carried over to the post slavery society, right? And so one of the older um, research studies that happens is by um, Errol Miller. And, you know, in the 1950s, much of his work is done on Jamaican children and teens, and the aspect of understanding how they associate beauty in their features. And so his findings were that Jamaican adolescents associated European features with beauty and Negroid features with ugliness. And so Miller explains that this concept of beauty is taught. However, it does not take away from the fact that young Jamaicans, especially in the 1950s, and even today, when it comes to wealth and social status and authority, they have all been situated and associated with a particular skin color, right? And so the ways in which this plays out today is that, you know, examples like pageantry, which I talk about in my paper, which Carolyn Cooper goes over in the way that Jamaican has built this kind of society where ugliness and beauty is built on the color of your skin. And so Carolyn Cooper talks about how in beauty pageants, Jamaican women are darker skin never win, right? And then another aspect of the impact of colonialism and slavery when it comes to beauty standards for Black Jamaican women is Michael Barnett, and he discusses the impact that it has had on hair and natural hair. Um, and that is something that didn't have a lot of research, which I was really surprised about. And so I couldn't really incorporate it the way I would have wanted to in my literature review. But it is something that I felt important enough to kind of speak up about because it isn't just skin color, although that is a major part of it because of the colorism that was embedded right in you know, European or Eurocentric beauty standards that are embedded into much of Jamaican culture today. But hair is also another part of it as well. And I thought that that was very interesting. And so, really getting into the two sides of this issue, the first one being skin bleaching and its connection to low self esteem and self hate. There is a multitude of research on literature on skin bleaching and the impact of identity and self-esteem. And like I said before, Christopher Charles is a scholar who does a large majority of his work um, on identity and self-esteem as factors that influence skin bleaching. And so I use a lot of Christopher Charles in my research and in my paper because I think that he has a good sense in his research spans over quite some time of understanding of this side of the issue. And so Charles hypothesizes that skin bleaching is linked to low self-esteem because women think of themselves with negative attributes. And so he believes that identity starts in adolescence and is connected to the things that they're exposed to, which remains consistent with Miller's study about the internalization of Eurocentric standards of beauty as well. And so, oops, I didn't mean to do that. And so in Charles's interview, he interviewed 18 people from the ages of about 18 to like 37, and he asked them to rank statements of like, I am a beautiful woman, agree or disagree, or I am a handsome man, agree or disagree. And so from this research, he did not find any large associations between self-hate and bleaching in the sample of bleachers that he used in this study. However, he did one of the critiques of his own study was that he felt to grasp the true connection, it had to be between much larger sample groups. And so he continues this study for several years. The first one was in 2003, which was published. The next one was in 2017 with Sham McLean. And they also look at body image disturbance that is connected to skin bleaching. And so he hypothesizes there that there's a positive connection between skin bleaching and body image disturbance or dysmorphia. And so this includes a larger amount of people, 160, being split into groups of half bleaching and half non-bleaching, and he ended up with the same result. Ogaro, Morgan, Hill, Reed, Simpson, Lee, and Edwards, they also look at the connection between the link of Western beauty standards and the psychological effects in the Caribbean, but they do it on the larger scale that Charles kind of asks for. And so, but the difference between their study and Charles's study is that they focus on um, kind of the link between um, beauty and or Western beauty standards that are internalized and mental illness, or in this instance, depression, right? And so they take 212 Jamaican students, and they look at factors that connect low self-esteem and depression. And so their study was done at the University of West Indies in Jamaica. And again, that was with 268 undergraduates, about 190 females and 78 males. And that of course, there's some that don't actually make the study. And so they ended up with 212. And so what they found was that sex was associated positively with depressive systems, which in turn showed that women had greater, depressive symptoms. And it was also associated with self-esteem. However, they also explained that despite the fact that depression symptoms were weakly, but they were also positively associated with internalized Western themes, um, they're also inversely correlated with self-esteem. Okay, so essentially what their study was saying was that there isn't a strong association with, depression and Western ideals. However, there is an association between the two, right? And so I think that this study in particular gives kind of the foundation of what Charles is trying to accomplish within his studies, is understanding, okay, if depression and Western ideals are connected, right? In what ways are they connected when it comes to beauty, right? In what ways does that magnifies um, the theory of skin bleaching and identity? And so that's this half of, um, I guess, the situation. The other half is how it's connected to dance hall music. And Donna Hope is the scholar that does a ton of research on not only dance hall in itself, but the way the dance hall in fashion and advancement of fashion is connected with skin bleaching. And so Donna Hope, in her article in 2009, she really explores the phenomenon of skin bleaching through the culture of popular dancehall. And so one of the conclusions that she comes up with is that instead of skin bleaching being linked to self-esteem or self-hate, um, and other concepts that negate Blackness in Jamaica, it instead, as she puts it, is associated with like modern modes and models of appropriate fashion and style that are socially and culturally relevant to the identities of the culture's contemporary stage of dancehall. And so dancehall again can be traced um, and it really is the center of many issues of skin color and bleaching, because there is a lot of dancehall music who support skin bleaching, right? There's one example that she gives in particular called Me Love, Love Me Browning. And the lyrics say, I love my car, I love my bike, I love my money, and things, but most of all, I love my browning. And browning essentially is kind of the code term for skin bleaching or becoming more brown, which they associate with a lighter color. Because remember, like I said before, their dynamic was white, brown, and black, right? And so the browning would be that lighter portion. And then Hope also continues this work, after that, I believe in 2017 or 2019, it's um, her paper and article that she does on browning to cake pop, um, or to cake soap. And she really just looks at more lyrics of dancehall culture to look at the way the contemporary aspect of skin bleaching and the way Eurocentrism, sorry, I can't speak today, has a part of beauty standards. And so Hope continues to analyze like different lyrics from the genre of dancehall in order to kind of display that connection or lack thereof. But one of the things that she ultimately comes up with is that this correlation of skin bleaching and things like that and its connection to prestige and class, it really just is a way to get lower class Jamaicans to associate their liberation in ways that don't really facilitate true social and cultural mobility in general. And so essentially, the takeaways that I take from this literature review is that, Charles, Hope, Cooper contribute greatly to this concept of, skin bleaching and the impact that colonialism in Jamaica has on Black women's, idea of beauty standards, especially when it comes to attractiveness and skin color, right? And of course, among other scholars that I've mentioned in my paper, but these were just like the main three in its impacts. But the within the discipline of psychology, it is really clear that there is a lack of scholarship that is able to prove the direct link between skin bleaching and self-esteem and self-hate. However, we are able to see through Ogaro and the rest of the scholars on that research that they are able to tie an indirect but positive link between Western ideas of beauty and self-esteem. And so for me personally, I think one of the takeaways that I found was that there needs to be more research in connecting the work that Ogaro has done with the work that Charles is attempting to do in his research as well. And so this connection brings forth the opportunity, like I said, for more research on those Western ideals' impact on Black Jamaican women's idea of beauty, um, and also within hair texture and psychology and physical size as well. And then as far as the other side of it goes, I think Hope does a really good job of using dance hall. I think that there's an opportunity for her to continue and to dive deeper into what she talks about when she discusses how a skin bleaching is a form of self-liberation or false liberation in the way that people think that they're able to obtain the things that lighter skin or white people obtain because of their skin color. And that's something that I also go into in the paper literature review as well. And so that's all that I have. I hope that this wasn't too long and too winded. It's hard to explain 10 pages worth of research that you found in paperwork in such a small amount of time. But I hope that that was explained easily enough. But if not, I hope that my paper does a really good job of explaining the literature that is out there and the ways that it has room to grow within the future of, psychology, ethics, history, and then also the need for more scholarship to be available within Jamaica and Black Jamaican women and, internalized Western beauty standards. So thank you so much. And yes, hey, bye.